can you invest with success? And really the better question is, how can you invest with consistent success, and what are the habits that you need to do so? Today I'm going to give you two really tiny habits that can help you to become a much better investor and change your investing life. Let's go ahead and break it down. All right, as mentioned, there are two very tiny things that can change your entire investing life, and there aren't enough people talking about this because they are completely overlooked. And you can implement these two things today. So I'm going to jump right into it and show you exactly why they are so critical and how they can help you and your portfolio and help you to become a better investor. All right, the first one is this. You must make this a habit. And this is going back and studying your trades and your investments. What do I mean by that? If you are somebody who is buying and selling stocks often, you can do this on a monthly basis or weekly basis. If you're trading a lot, you definitely want to do this on a weekly basis. If you're somebody who doesn't buy and sell stocks as often, I do this twice a year. You guys know I do this in June and in December. If you're someone who swing trades, so maybe you're doing like 5 to 10 trades per month, you can do this monthly. What you want to do though is, and I've done this in a spreadsheet, you guys have likely seen me do this before, but go back and see when you bought, when you sold, what went right, but most importantly, what went wrong. The reason why you want to do that is to study what are your patterns, what are your mistakes, and see what are your patterns in terms of what do you tend to do right, what do you tend to do wrong, and take the, if you can find them, take the biases out of that equation. Some people tend not to see those. They tend to keep buying the exact same stock. And for example, there are people, I'm gonna just say it, that tend to be like Elon Musk fans, and they just love Tesla regardless of what happens, and they don't really see like, hey, you might be losing money on that stock and you just love Elon just because, right? But until you look at that spreadsheet and you realize, hey, you've lost $800 this month because you've been buying and selling the stock and you have been making money, it might break down the truth to you, right? And you might want to do something different because your emotions don't match the money, right? Same people could be doing the same thing with AMC. Same people could be doing the same thing with GameStop. Same people could be doing the same thing with the Donald Trump stock. All of that stuff could be true. You can see the same people doing the same thing with any stock that people have an emotional attachment to. Also, you can start to see the same patterns with people who don't pay attention to specific things. So for example, for me, I didn't pay attention to a merger that happened with Smuckers, right? That was a mistake. The company was good. I looked at the financials. I went back and studied that trade. They did a merger with Hostess. Stock ain't been the same since, right? Not General Mills. It was, and remember, because I study my own trades, right? This was, I think it was the beginning of 2021 or 2022. It was 2022. We were talking about insurance companies. I bought, I was going to say Pinnacle. It was Prudential? It was one of the financial companies. Principal Financial was the name of the company. And this is like beginning of the year, around January or so. It was end of December, moving into January as I'm going back to the trade in my head. Was buying that company. We had talked about, I'm pretty sure I put it on the list. Those financial companies were expected to do well because the rates were supposed to go up and everything was great with the financial industry. It might have been 2022 going into 2023. And then banks collapsed. I don't know if y'all remember that, right? And that stock did not do well, even though it was an insurance company. Insurance was fine, but because it was a financial stock and banks didn't do well and some banks collapsed, that stock didn't do well. I went back, studied that trade. Like, I was right on paper, but that's, I was just right place, wrong time, and essentially went back and studied and said, all right, I learned my lesson. That's not anything I can necessarily control. I can't control a merger. I couldn't control the banking crisis at that point in time. It is what it is. But I had to go back and study and say, all right, I took that L, right? And it's just something I had to learn and something I had to pay attention to. I needed to look at the broader context, look at that entire sector. Same thing when we went back and talked about when the Russian-Ukraine thing first started, right? I had to take a step back and look at all of those things and see why I was right and why I was wrong about certain things, and start to look at those patterns and see where you might be weakest at. Also, of my own mistakes, I tend to be most wrong for whatever reason between the end of December and early January. Anytime, I just tend to be wrong around those times. I just don't know what's happening. I don't know. Anytime I'm studying my own trades, that last week of December, those first 3 weeks of January, it's just off. Okay? And this is why, if you start to look at a lot of my videos and a lot of my stock stuff, I tend not to say nothing. Right? We do different types of content during them times of year because I try to see what's going on during the year and say, hey, I don't know what's going on. I'm gonna wait to see what happens this year, and then we'll put out our list in February, right? Until I figure out what's going on with the year at that point in time, because I study my trades. I want to be better. Okay, so that's just something that I have noticed just based on studying my own stuff, and it's free and easy to do with most apps. You can just you can do it with your tax document. I don't necessarily like doing that. You can get, because one, you can do it at the end of the year. Not necessarily not something I prefer to do at the end of the year because it's just a more cumbersome document. Some apps will allow you to download a spreadsheet or a CSV file to do that. If you like Excel, you can. It's not my favorite thing, but you can do it that way if you want to add and subtract all that stuff. So that's one way to do it. Or if you haven't done that many trades, it's very easy to do just by looking at it. Totally up to you, whatever way you want to do it, but it is extremely valuable. Once you do it enough times, you will know your habits. It's just like studying your own film or tape. If you are an athlete or something like that, you will start to see what your own habits are, and you can get around it, and you will know where your mistakes lie, and you will become a better investor because of it. The next one, and I would say this is likely the most powerful one, and the one that has made me the most money, and that is writing down your process and approaching your investing like a scientist. I don't mean writing down like, I like this stock because of this. No. Writing down, this is how I buy a stock, and following step 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 every single time. Every single time. I do not buy a stock unless I go through steps 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 every single time. Okay. Now, my process, I have honed and done maybe for the last 9 or 10 years, probably longer than that. Now, how I honed my process, part of it was I went through some trials and tribulations. Okay. I had to go through some stuff. Went through school. I went through some mistakes. I went through some losses. I've been through went through grad school, been a financial advisor. I've learned from people. So my own process comes through a lot of trial and error. It comes through a lot of success. I went through stuff that worked. I went through clients and pulled things from them and helped people become successful. Then I used it for myself, obviously. Then I used it for clients and they got successful. Then I used it for students. So I have a proven process that I personally use, and that is what I know worked, which is why when I tell y'all, I only look at my stuff in June, and I only buy and sell in June and December. That's why, because that's my process and that's what works. And that's what I have written down. And I try not to ever deviate from that, except for really, really niche situations, right? Which is extremely rare. If it ain't then, I ain't buying. If it ain't then, I ain't selling. Okay? You got to figure out what your process is, and it has to be written down. When you don't do that, when you don't have a process written down, you are going to be inconsistent. When you're inconsistent, you're going to get lucky buying a stock today. You're going to get bad buying a stock tomorrow. You're going to panic and sell a stock. A lot of people, whether it's Nvidia today or some other Apple or whatever it's going to be tomorrow, you are going to buy a good stock. I saw somebody say, I panic sold and now I don't have a stock and I lost money. Well, here's the thing. The stock might have been good. You panic sold. That is on you. Now, that's not to shame anybody or anything, right? Like, I'm not coming to nobody personally, okay? But the thing is, you can own something that's great, but because you don't have the process, it's not up to the stock to have a process. It's not up to a stock to tell you when to sell and when it's time to get out. The stocks don't have that. You have to have that. And that is the key. You are the one that has to know when to buy, when to sell, when to be calm, and when to never panic. And that is the major key. When you don't have that process, that's going to be a problem. And that is the main problem, because you are like water, my friend. It works in Kung Fu, right? It works when you Bruce Lee. It don't work when you're trying to be Warren Buffett. And that's the problem. Now, Warren Buffett has his own process. It is, I don't have the book up here. Oh, it's over here. I'm trying to figure out whether I should reach for this book or not. I'm going to reach for it. I knocked some stuff down. his entire process is in this book. Now, do I agree with his entire process? No, I do not. But he has a process, and he follows it, and has been following it for, 70 something years, and it works for him, right? What is yours? Is your process written down? Yes or no? It don't have to be long and complex. Mine literally fits on a half page. I got it written in my phone. I literally have it in a PDF. It's in my courses. I got mine, right? What is yours? You have to have yours. And once you have your process, once it is set in stone and you have tested it over and over and over again, and you know it works, then you got to decide what you're going to buy, what you're going to sell. Right, so once you have that, then you can start to see success. I will tell you this though, when you have that process, as you're testing it and you're starting to go through, you're gonna do what I did, right, and approach it like a scientist. And you're gonna go through and you're gonna see, hey, this doesn't work, cross it off, put something else in there, test it, see if it works, add it in there. Right? And you keep going through that same list, crossing things off that don't work, adding things that do, until that list becomes golden, and then you know that the process does work. But once you do have it, again, you are going to need to know, all right, now I know that this process works. I need to know what stocks do I need to buy and where them stocks at, right? So once you have that process, what stocks do you buy? You want to know what watch list do I need to start with, and what do I even test these stocks with? Well, I've got the video for you. If you want to know where to start and what stocks to start your research list, then this is the video that you want to check out next.